What shall I call you, Elly or?
Så
Elly, okay.
er vi klar til Elly Griffiths og Bo Tao Michaëlis. Og I skal tale om bogen Pigen under jorden. Very warm welcome to you, Elly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, and a very warm welcome to this hot climate here in Denmark. It's terrible. I'm so ashamed of this Siberian cold. But now you are here, Elly, and you're going to tell us a little about your habit-forming first novel about Rus and what it's all about. Because I have this habit that when I'm interviewing a crime writer, of crime fiction, I always let them tell us about the novel because I must not tell what's not to be told.
Okay. Well, actually, it's the perfect setting here because it's cold and you've got the marshland, so it's perfect. And I'm English, so I don't mind the cold. It's fine. So the book is about a forensic archaeologist called Dr. Ruth Galloway, and she is called in by the police when bones are found on marshland near her house. And the police think that they might be the bones of a child who went missing 10 years ago. But in fact, the bones turn out to be 2,000 years old, Iron Age. But Ruth is then drawn into the mystery of the missing child. And I'm writing book 10 now, so let me just tell you, she's drawn into a very complicated relationship with the policeman.
With this policeman?
DCI Harry Nelson, yes. It's no less complicated after 10 books.
Okay. It's an everlasting affair.
Well, it won't be everlasting, but, it's still complicated, let's just say.
Yes, but because in the first book he's a happily married man, or
yes.
happily, that's a relative term perhaps,
yes.
but he's after all married in a way.
He's still married.
He's still married, okay.
That's all I'm saying, but yes.
But when we meet Ruth, she has just been leaving a relationship that was very complicated, and she has heartache still over this boyfriend that left her.
Yeah, she has heartache, but also another side of her, which I do relate to, likes living on her own with her cat. And, there's nothing wrong with that. So she quite likes being on her own, and I think this is part of it. She broke up with her boyfriend, but actually I think she likes her life on her own, just with her cat, with her work on the edge of this beautiful, lonely marshland. So Ruth is she's a very professional woman. She likes her own company, so she's not needing a man.
No, she's not needing a man.
But a man does come into her life all the same. And a child.
And that's a secret? No, it's not a secret.
Yeah,
but still, there's this colleague or friend you have from Norway, Erik. He's an archaeologist as well. And what's the relationship there? Is it only friendly or?
Well, Erik is her mentor and her university professor. Yes, and he's from Norway, not from Sweden, as I told somebody the other day. He's from Norway.
No, he's from Norway.
Yeah. And of course, he's an expert on this, because here we are in the home of the bog bodies, aren't we? So he is an expert on bog bodies and on ancient history. So yes, he is her mentor, but they have quite a close relationship. And there's also Cathbad, who is he's a druid. He's a pagan and a druid. And in real life, there was a henge found in North Norfolk, and the druids did protest when they tried to move it, because of course for them it was meant to be there, by the sand and the sea, and they shouldn't have taken it away. So she has another close relationship. Well, it becomes a close relationship with Cathbad.
Yes, she's a very special woman because she's not at all a blonde hero or she's not this cool cat. First of all, she's a major woman. She has her own life and she's academic.
Yes.
What else is there some aspects of you in her?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, we both like cats.
Okay.
We both like Bruce Springsteen. We both like Ian Rankin. Yes, I mean, there is part of me in Ruth, but also I'm much more sociable than she is. She likes her own company. She's quite reserved, and I'm not so reserved. So there is that difference. And sometimes when I'm writing about her, I will write the words Ruth said nothing. And I always think, wow, that's a great thing to say nothing. And I always say something. So
that's wonderful.
Well.
You want to say something. Tell us a little about Harry Nilsson. What is it a typical stiff upper lip Englishman, or is this a peculiar as well?
No, well, I think he is. He's from the north of England, and he. I don't know if this is still working. Is it? Yeah, it's fine. So he's from the north of England, and in England, I don't know if it's the same here. You sometimes have the perception that people from the north are very tough.
That's the same.
Is it the same here? People from the north are tough, and they're quite. They're a bit impatient with southern. I'm from the south, with southern sort of namby-pambiness. So he's tough and he's northern. He has no interest in anything academic or in the history or the archaeology. But of course, there are things that are similar, because he's a detective and she's an archaeologist. They're both about digging down through the layers and finding the truth. I'm not sure where Nelson comes from, but my editor said that women writers end up writing about their father. My dad was quite like Nelson. He was a racing driver, my dad, and Nelson always drives too fast, so maybe there's a bit of my dad there.
The northern silent type.
Yes, yeah.
We have
Although
the two here in Denmark. And you just mentioned Ian Rankin. He loves Jutland.
I can imagine.
There is some kind of bond between Scotland and Jutland.
I think so. Val McDermott said the same thing about Scotland and Scandinavia having a very similar. Yes.
And just like the Scots hate London, the people from Jutland don't like Copenhagen.
Oh, I see. I'll say nothing.
It's a myth. It's a myth. It's not true, I hope. But
well, in England, everyone hates London, so
Yes, but here in Jutland, everybody else hates Copenhagen. You can always, if there's a Danish villain in a Danish movie, he comes from Copenhagen.
But in an American film, they're always British, aren't they? The villain is always British, so maybe it's a compliment in a way, I think.
But how did you get this idea that making an odd couple out of a ordinary tough northern policeman and this academic intellectual cat lover and archaeologist?
Well, I'm not sure really. I think it was because of the idea that my husband is an archaeologist, and archaeologists are consulted by the police when they find buried bodies. So I think it was the thought of the difference between this kind of academic discipline and the police, and the things that were different, but also the things that were the same. The way that, because quite often when archaeologists are looking at a buried body, they are looking at a crime victim. If you look at Tolland Man, he is a victim of a crime,
Yes,
so, and there's, a pretty comprehensively killed, wasn't he? Yeah. Many times over,
but we do not know why.
No, we do not know why.
No. We do not know. We never caught the murder.
No. But in archaeology, the questions are more important than the answers.
It's not who done it, but why do it.
Yes, absolutely.
How come this fascination with the bogland and the bog people and the marsh, these strange diabolic part of land where there are a lot of myths and legends and so on? How did this fascination come to you?
Well, it was due to my husband, really. My husband is an archaeologist. So we were walking on Norfolk marshland one day, and Norfolk, I don't know if anyone's been to Norfolk, but it's beautiful, isn't it? It's on the east coast of England, but like here, you get the wind from Siberia because it's very flat, very beautiful, but it's quite. So you get the sand and then the dunes and then the marshes. So we're walking over these marshes, and Andy said that prehistoric people, so way back, prehistoric people thought that marshland was sacred land. Because it's not land or sea, but something in between, they thought of it as a link to the afterlife. Neither land nor sea, neither life nor death. Like an in-between place. In England, we'd say a liminal zone. And that's why you find bodies buried there. And of course, it's the same here. It's the same zone. And that was the thing that lit the idea for me. That idea that it was between life and death, really. And it was this, the land itself was sacred and special.
You even write about northern mythology, about this tree of life.
Yes,
Yggdrasil.
Yggdrasil, yes.
Why? How have you been fascinated by the Norse mythology or the Norse legends, the Vikings and all that stuff?
Yes.
Iron people and so.
I love Norse mythology, and my mother used to tell wonderful stories about Norse legends.
Okay.
And also my aunt lives in Norfolk, and she has a boat. And when I was young, we used to spend part of every summer on my aunt's boat. And so we'd be going along, and she'd have one hand on the tiller and one hand on a gin and tonic. Because, as she always said, gin and tonic is slimming. So something to remember. Anyhow, but she'd tell these wonderful ghost stories about the marshes and about the lost children calling from the sea, but also Norse legends. And when they found the henge on the North Norfolk coast, in the middle of it was an upside down tree. And so they do wonder if that was meant to be Yggdrasil, yes, the tree of life and death. And you know that there's, that Odin was sacrificed on the tree. There are obviously Christianity echoes that. So I'm very interested in all that.
Okay, because now we can tell the secret that Elly Griffiths is not your real name.
No.
This is a woman in disguise.
Yes.
You have because you have an Italian name and you are half Italian.
Yes, my real name is Domenica de Rosa.
Domenica de Rosa.
It sounds made up, doesn't it? It sounds like a pseudonym, but it's my real name, and it means in English Sunday of the Rose. And I'm not sure why I got such a good name, because my sisters are Julia and Sheila. But I was born on Sunday, so I got the romantic name. Yes.
But why didn't you use your real name instead of this Elly Griffiths name?
Well, really, it's because I did write as Domenica de Rosa, and I wrote 4 books they were all about sort of Italy and history and families. And so when I wrote this book, in English it's The Crossing Places, my agent said to me, she said, you need a crime name. So Elly Griffiths is my crime name. But in fact, it was my maternal grandmother was called Elly Griffiths, so it's her name. And in fact, it's a Welsh name. So there's a sort of...
it's really complicated.
It is complicated, but it's a family name.
Yes, but it's a good name. It just have the echo of Ellery Queen, the famous.
Yes.
Ellery Queen, Elly Griffiths.
Well,
it's almost the same. It's the same music.
Yeah, maybe. Yes, I hadn't really thought about that. But one thing they always say is that in a shop, A is up there and Z is there, but on eye level is FGH. Okay. So if you have that name, you're made. There you are.
How do you start your book? Do you start plotting or do you start writing? And do you have a lot of research? You must have, because there's a lot of information about these bog people. So do you have a plot a priori, or do you plotting on your way?
Well, I have a very sketchy plot. I have a vague plot. So just sort of one line for each chapter.
Okay.
So, but I do know more or less what's going to happen. And I think writers are very different, aren't they?
Yes.
They're all, some don't plot at all.
Oh.
And some plot all the time. I was on a panel with a very academic sort of crime writer, and he said, I don't plot at all. He said, the murderer is a surprise even to me. And I thought, oh, shut up, because I don't believe that for a moment.
That's very arrogant.
But it is, isn't it?
It's very arrogant.
Yeah.
Because one must say that there ought to be something of a plot. It doesn't have to be like Agatha Christie or Dorothy Sayers.
No.
Just like Raymond Chandler or Ian Rankin. There ought to be some kind of plotting. Don't you think so?
I think so, and I think when the reader finishes a crime novel, you should feel sort of satisfied. I think when you get to sort of there, the reader should know, because you'll have given them all the right clues.
Yep.
And like Agatha Christie, she never hid anything. It was all there, but you shouldn't get it too early. So I think there has to be a satisfying plot.
There has to be a satisfying plot. But saying that, Elly, you are more just like the old whodunit. You are going back. You are not just like those who are writing Nordic noir about policemen. There's one policeman, of course, there's police in your book. But you're also going back to this structure that you have to have a riddle.
Yes.
And you give up you write all these traits to find or to come to a conclusion about this riddle. Is that something that you said? Is that your intention?
Yes, it is really. I
have
do.
a reaction to the Nordic noir or the domestic noir?
Well, I do. I mean, I love all sorts of crime fiction. So I love Nordic noir, and I love domestic noir, and I love historical crime. I love all sorts. But for me, I do like to have a plot that works and a plot that is, I suppose it is old-fashioned in a way. I quite like a locked room, you know, and I suppose setting up books on lonely marshes is a bit like that. And the second book is called The House of Lies, and it's about a house, you know, a deserted house. So I do quite like that. And I always think that the clues should all be there, and at the end you should have all your questions answered. Hopefully you shouldn't know too soon, but I do try, and I like crosswords, I like riddles, I like, you know, that sort of thing.
But couldn't one say that the good crime story is the crime story that's good, even if you know the murder or if the plot is rather vague? Isn't the mood and what you're going to know? You, for instance, you're taking us to Norfolk and to the box. So, do you think it's a good thing that the crime story is more concentrated on the moody pages of Mystic and all that, instead of just like Christie trying to make an impossible plot that is only possible because she knows how to plot?
Well, I think it is one of the things, isn't it, about one of the reasons why we're all in this wonderful place, isn't it? Because crime novels do take us to new places.
Yes.
And I think that is something that we really do get from crime fiction. You know, I've travelled all over the world with crime novels, you know, and I think that is one of the real strengths of them. And also, as you say, you learn things. You learn things about history and about mythology, and I find that really fascinating. I've just read an Ian Rankin book, actually, that has lots of very interesting stuff about Edinburgh's past, and I love all that. You know, I love it when you learn new things. So I think that is part of it. I think that the plot has to work. But I think all the rest of it is very important.
Yes,
and it wouldn't, and as we were saying about Tolland Man, you know, sometimes it's why done it, isn't it?
Yes.
Sometimes we know early on, but it's why, and that sort of has to work as well, I think. But I think the place is very, very important.
Very important, yes.
Yes.
But isn't there a danger that you're making Norfolk to a hell of tourism? Just like if you go to Oxford now,
Yes.
you go not to Oxford to study, you go to Oxford because
Yes, it's too dangerous, yes, yes. Yes.
Yes, so but it's good that you introduce new places. That I've never been to Norfolk, but reading your book, I have I'm curious.
Good.
Because I like these lands, these mysterious
And it's
landscapes.
you know, Norfolk is a very interesting place because there are old towns and there are seaside places and there are ports, and it's all very, you know, it's very varied really. But do you get midsummer murders here? So you do, there is the danger, isn't there, of making one small place full of bodies. But the thing about Norfolk, and the thing about Jutland, I'm sure, is that it's full of bodies. It is full of bodies. Just that some have been buried for, you know, hundreds and thousands of years. But because it's been inhabited for so long, you know, the oldest hominin footprints were found on the outside Africa, were found in Norfolk, you know, so people have been there for a very, very long time.
Long time.
I'm not going to run out of bodies yet.
Okay, God. Thank you very much for this talk, and I can only recommend this habit-forming archaeological thriller. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Tak til Bo Tao Michaëlis og Elly Griffiths.
Thank you.
Elly, will you be signing books? Elly, will you be signing books? Huh? Yeah? Yeah.